Athletes all around the world sacrifice their bodies in order to play the sports that they love. Some of these sports are contact sports such as football, boxing, and hockey. Generally, people tend to not consider the effects of playing contact sports and the tolls that it takes on the athletes' bodies and minds. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, otherwise known as CTE, is a disease that is gained from repeated head injuries that has ruined many current and former lives of athletes. There is no cure for this disease. We have to remember that while almost all of us are fans of some sport, sometimes we take athletes and what they do for granted. They're people like us and they struggle like us. CTE is something that I've looked into ever since I've heard about it because of how much it affects these athletes and how much it seems to get overlooked, which kind of makes me want to look into it more because it's taken so lightly. In order for you to fully have a grasp on CTE, though, I will talk about what the disease is, how it affects the lives of its carriers, the history of the disease, and what actions have been taken to lessen the potential for this disease in sports. First, I will talk about the disease, how it happens, and what it's like to live with it. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy was officially discovered by Dr. Bennett Amalu while looking through the brain of Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Famer Mike Webster. Mike Webster was showing signs of severe mental problems. He would pull out his teeth and superglue them back in. He would zap himself with a taser to get sleep. He would forget to eat, and he would go sleep under bridges for days at a time. This frightened his family a lot, and when he was 50, he died. This is around the same age as most of our parents. After his death, Amalu took samples of his brain and he found regular folds of gray matter. He did not find any mush or contusions that you'd find in a dementia patient, and no shrinkage like you would find in an Alzheimer patient. On top of this, the CT scans and MRI scans all came back normal, so it can only be detected during, after death. CTE is caused by repeated hits to the head as well as concussions, and this usually is caused by hundreds or even thousands of hits that are subconcussive but still powerful. The hits cause a protein called tau to form clumps around the brain that kill the brain cells. There are 4 stages of CTE, and stage 1 includes mild memory problems and depressive symptoms. Stage 2 includes behavioral outbursts and severe depression. Stage 3 includes cognitive deficits, including memory loss and executive dysfunction. And stage 4 involves language deficits, psychotic symptoms, and profound cognitive deficits. CTE can be hard to live with due to these conditions. USA Today interviewed Lisa Hudson, wife of former New York Jets Super Bowl winning cornerback, and she's described it as watching the life go out of someone's eyes. Another CTE victim, 2-time Super Bowl champion and former NFL Man of the Year for his service in the community, Dave Duerson, shot himself in the chest because he was suffering from the disease, and he wanted his brain to be studied, and he also wanted to raise awareness for the disease. Now that I've told you about the disease and what it's like, I will talk about the history of CTE. CTE was actually first described as punch-drunk syndrome, which was found in boxers as early as 1928. The difficulty with this was they never knew what caused it. They just knew that it happened to boxers and it would cause boxers to have severe mental issues. It's really the same thing as that. At the time, it was really just an idea rather than an actual, official medical disease. But in 2005, Bennett Amalu published the evidence of CTE from Mike Webster, as I talked about. Although this is the same thing as punch-drunk syndrome, it was never actually discovered, and there have been many former players affected by this disease. Dr. Ann McKee, a neuropathologist, did a study where she looked at the brains of former NFL players and found that 110 out of 111 players had CTE. Teammates of Mike Webster, Justin Strzelczyk, committed suicide by intentionally crashing into a gas truck and was found to have severe CTE. Terry Long, another Steeler, committed suicide by drinking a gallon of antifreeze and was found to have severe CTE. Junior Seau, another Hall of Famer who played for the Chargers, shot himself in the chest at age 43 in 2012. And he was found to have severe CTE as well. And the list really just keeps going on and on with these athletes. There's multiple cases of this. There are currently 37 players who have been diagnosed with CTE, although you cannot officially, for sure have it until you are dead and confirm it. These athletes include Hall of Famer Tony Dorsett and Brett Favre, and the youngest diagnosed one is Tim Shaw at just age 35. There's also over 4,500 people who have reported symptoms of CTE that are former athletes. I will now move into the NFL in relation to CTE and what measures have been taken to reduce the chances of this disease. The NFL was actually very scared at first, and they denied CTE for the longest time. Eventually, after about 11 years, when asked by Representative Jan Schakowsky whether there is a link between football and degenerative brain diseases like CTE, Senior Vice President of Health and Safety Jeff Miller responded, "The answer to that is certainly yes." Now the NFL takes many precautions to help prevent this, such as you cannot initiate contact with your head down if you're a runner, and you cannot hit another player in the helmet, and they're making helmets safer by absorbing more of the power rather than what they used to. To conclude, CTE is a disease that affects many athletes and also taken many lives of athletes as well. There's been a long history with CTE in athletes, but it took a while for it to actually be found. Many athletes have struggled with this, not to mention the families of these victims and their struggle with watching them go through it. Research into CTE is being done every day now. With the studies of all groups looking into this, hopefully we'll live in a world one day where CTE is treatable.